Yep, it finally happened. I impulse bought a BMW because I hate myself. But the reality is, I've always kind of wanted an E39, ideally an E39 M5 in Le Mans Blue, but the market is beyond stupidity with them right now and approaching just ludicrous pricing. And so this $3,000 car popped up for sale locally, and being Orient Blue, hardtop, and rust free, I couldn't refuse another financial nightmare. So, this is my new long term cruiser project. This goal is to just drive around town, drive to the grocery store, drive to Cars and Coffee, basically just run errands in this car during the summer. No major mechanical issues now. AC works. Everything works in the car. It has the seat twist on the passenger side that E39s get. It has a few other little teething errors. It needs a brake job. It needs its suspension overhauled dearly. It's drivable, but it's not exactly the best driving E39 in the world. The auxiliary fan doesn't work. There's paint chipping on the front end of the car from rock chips. There's some clear issues on the roof, and it just needs some TLC. It needs a year or two of just overhaul and maintenance. The passenger side rear wheel and tire leaks like 2 psi a day or two, and that needs to be fixed. There's just a plethora of issues. But if you want to see how bad it was when I got it, I limped it home, and then this happened.
Auf der Heide blüht ein kleines Blümelein. Und das heißt Erika.
So let's break down these check engine lights, this beautiful orange glow that so many Volkswagen and BMW owners are familiar with. The check engine light was on due to a NUC sensor, which is a noxious gas sensor, which is tied into the HVAC system. And I replaced that sensor, and the code went away. It's gone. Then car idles up, runs fantastic. No major issues on the engine side yet. Does consume a little bit of oil. The PCV system is probably way past due for being replaced. That would be my guess. There's no horrific diesel noise or anything like that. The engine fires up and idles perfectly fine with Liqui-Moly 5W40. Consumes half a quart over about 2,000 miles, I would say. So that's not terrible overall. That's even within spec, I believe. I mean, it's a high mileage M54. What do you expect, really? All right, then we have the DSC light in the middle, and the ABS light, and the brake light. Those are all tied in together. The ABS controller, which is the board inside the Bosch ABS system, on the passenger side of the car in the engine bay, right next to the exhaust manifold. It gets cooked over time, and the solder apparently fails within the board there, and that was the source of this issue, which it produced a shit ton of codes, and probably like 5 engine codes, and all the forums, everyone was like, yeah, you gotta replace the ABS module. So, replace the ABS module. Those codes went away. So the final major nasty light is the bottom right-hand side, right next to the seatbelt light, which would be the gearbox check engine light or the gearbox indicator light. This generally comes on when there's a fault in the TCU, and that fault in the TCU can come from electrical, it can come from the engine controller as well. It can mean a bunch of other things. In this situation, it was throwing gear errors for second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear. You would reset it in IMPA. the code would come right back. Then, some days, you'd fire it up, the car would drive perfectly fine. You'd get to your destination, ATF temps would be great. They'd be like 150, 160. Then you'd fire it up to leave the grocery store. The light comes back on, torque converter stops locking, and it just starts spiking ATF temps closer to 200. And that's not exactly optimal. You're going to have a very bad time. Now, this generally can be from a plethora of things. Is your fluid low, which it was not. I topped it off and everything with ZF's stupid fill method where you pump shit in until it comes out of the inspection hole, because screwed dipsticks, those are not necessarily according to the Germans, which is stupid. So it was about 2 weeks of troubleshooting this with probably 5 to 6 different codes continuing to come back over and over and over again. Now, I was starting to lose my mind, and I was like, we're just going to replace the TCU. It's a $30 part on eBay. I picked one up from a E46, actually. So they use the ZF 5HP19 as well. And so I picked it up for $30, plugged it right in, and code went away. This was the week before Dream Cruise. So, like, if you don't know, in Michigan and Detroit, Dream Cruise is like the biggest automotive event of the year. It's just jam-packed with thousands and thousands of cars. So it was really cool to get the car fixed and running after that. So now that the TCU was replaced, all of the gearbox codes are gone. The thing shifts phenomenal for a 190,000 mile gearbox. You wouldn't be able to tell it's got 190K on it. This car was clearly maintained in the past by previous owners, and until I picked it up, and it had sat for about 9 months. And so effectively, I'm under $4,000 into this car at this point. All it has needed was a new Bosch lead acid battery. It needed a new TCU, a new NUC sensor, and just a few other odds and ends here. Top off the ATF fluid. So in reality, it was like $200 to $300 to get this thing back running and driving. Is it optimal? Absolutely not. It still needs suspension overhaul, brake job, and all sorts of other things. The only light that's still on the dash is the brake pad sensor light, because someone decided to zip tie the pad wear sensors to the shock bodies, so they're not working, obviously. So I had the pleasure of driving this car all Dream Cruise weekend. I put probably 600 miles on it just in that weekend, and we burned probably 2 tanks of gas. It was fantastic. It's comfortable as can be, considering it needs a suspension overhaul, and it was wonderful. Like, it drives really, really good for its high mileageness. And I mean, I've driven a bunch of cars that have impressed me, but like E39 is really, really good. Now I understand why people speak so highly of it. And yeah, they're a little more expensive to maintain than your Honda Civic or your Toyota Corolla, but it's definitely worth it for the driving experience. Like, my coworker said, he's like, man, I just miss that steering wheel, and I miss how the car feels to drive, because he had to sell his car for parts because it got sideswiped, and that was pretty sad. And he had a 1999 528i that he absolutely loved. I understand the appeal of these cars now, and I definitely get it. So where are we at now? It has about 192,000 miles. It's currently sitting in my friend's garage, in storage, leaking oil somewhere, as BMWs do when they get older. And it is just chilling for the next couple months until spring comes around. Let's start with the exterior first. It is in actually really good condition for 190,000 miles. There's no rust at all on this car, except for a few spots on the front hood due to rock chips. I would love to get shadow line trim for it, because I'm not a huge fan of chrome, to be honest. As you can see, I'm going to have to replace the rear wiper assembly, because that was damaged, unfortunately, by a Neanderthal, which was me. Probably need to upgrade some of the tail lights as well to newer versions, or just replace and refurbish them. The exhaust definitely needs to be replaced with something that doesn't drone and isn't a full-blown straight pipe. The car exterior wise is actually in pretty good condition. There is some clear issues on the roof, which is typical of higher mileage older cars, but there's really nothing horrific about it. I would like to take off the roof rails on the top because I think they look a lot cleaner and a lot nicer with that. So yeah, the exterior of the vehicle is in surprisingly good condition, which is great because I can just paint the front end of it and have it resprayed, and that solves a lot of the issues, and probably do an M5 bumper while we're there because, you know, that's always what I've wanted in the past. So might as well do it. Screw it. And get some Style 65 wheels as well while we're there. All right, and moving on into the interior of the car, it's actually in surprisingly good condition. The door cards are in great shape. Some of it's just wear and tear, and it needs refurbishing. It needs a really good deep cleaning. The front seats need to be replaced with E38 seats, which are more comfortable for fat Americans like myself, and just needs a good deep cleaning overall. But that was not a priority when it doesn't even run correctly, so I didn't really care. I don't actually hate the tan interior. It kind of works on a blue car with black accents. And that's weird saying because I absolutely hated the tan interior in my Subaru Legacy wagon. Obviously, as you can see, the headliner is sagging, so that needs to be completely pulled out and refurbished sometime. It'll probably just get pinned up for the next year until I figure out what I want to do with the overall interior, because it ranges from just get E38 tan seats, install them, and clean everything up to dye the entire thing caramel or dark brown like a saddle leather because I'm a psychopath. Yeah, and then obviously you can see the head unit in there is an Alvin head unit, which is quite good, way better than the Eon that I tried to install and was dead on arrival and is a complete piece of garbage. So yeah, like the interior is not that terrible. The rear seats are in pretty good condition, but you just see some of the side effects of the car being from New Mexico is that the sun just roasts everything. And that's unfortunate, but I would rather have that than rust. So yeah, thanks for watching, and if you've gotten this far, the plans for this car are basically to make an M5 wagon replica on the exterior, and eventually get around to a turbo M50B 33-liter inline 6 of sorts down the road with a modern BMW ZF8 speed behind it. All of that, which is going to be rather expensive and painful, will probably be happening in 2 years to 3 years, or maybe sooner. Who knows? I'm not putting strict timelines on anything anymore because that's stupid. I'm older now, and I just plainly don't care anymore when it's done. When it's done, it'll be done. Until then, it's just going to be cruised around, and in the spring, there will be a suspension overhaul happening, new shocks, new control arms, new thrust arms, probably going to do a cooling overhaul as well, although ironically it doesn't leak any coolant anywhere or have no issues. It's odd. It's concerning that it's not leaking any coolant, which is worrying, but has no cooling issues, so that's fantastic. So now it's just going to be a matter of bringing the car up to spec, making it a fantastic daily driver during the summer that I can enjoy, and just, you know, keep miles off the Touareg TDI and just keep putting miles on this poor thing, drive it to work, and poach some E38 seats and cruise around in that flagship 7 Series comforts. So thanks for watching. Feel free to follow on social media and everything, and keep up to date with this next round of financial suffering.